just be prepared. Also, don't take anything too personally as the seller.
Oh yeah, big one.
Just don't take it personally. It's not personal. When people say it's the principal, like when we're negotiating and people are like, I just want this because it's the principal. No, get out of your own way. Like literally get out of your own way. If you want this to work, let the agents figure it out. Trust your agent when they tell you what's customary and what's normal. You shouldn't have hired anyone you don't trust anyway.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Crosby Show Homes Podcast. My name is Garrett Crosby, investor turned real estate agent, and today I am joined by the one and only Stormie. How do you pronounce your last name?
Leoni. Stormie Leoni.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie, like it kind of stressed me out, like thinking how I was gonna pronounce that. So thank you. That was like a nice, easy landing.
Yes. Happy to help. Yeah.
And so Stormie is an amazing real estate agent, someone who has a ton of experience, has been doing this a really long time.
Yes.
And I'm excited about today's episode to kind of get to know you a little bit more and maybe, let our audience know a little bit about you and your real estate history. Yeah. And also, of course, to kind of dig into this sort of question that I think a lot of people who have considered selling their house in this current market or just in general selling their home. I kind of view you as an expert when it comes to the listing side.
Right. I would say that I specialize in listing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I'm hoping like we can kind of, have this discussion sort of a little bit like to kind of, I don't know, like kind of bridge the questions that come up to potential clients that, we have when it comes to listing their home. What can they do to give their home the best possible chance to sell quickly, sell for the top dollar, things of that nature,
That all sounds good. I think we all like to sell quickly and for top dollars.
In a dream world.
It is a great scenario when that happens.
Yeah.
Yes. And we have paths towards that. So
for sure.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with this, Stormie? Why don't you tell us a little bit about sort of your life in real estate? How did you get started?
Goodness, my life in real estate.
Like, let's start from the day you were born.
Okay, yes. Well, I was born in Santa Monica. So actually, I was born in the city where my office is. And I started in real estate when I was around 22 or 23. I cannot remember exactly how old I was, but that's how old I was. So I had just graduated from college and I was working for a literary manager. And one of the writers was transitioning out of real estate into writing and didn't want to lose their clients. So they were like, I was the assistant for their manager and they were like, go get your license and you can help me. Because at the time, like I was making like minimum wage, right? So he was trying to help me out. It was like supposed to be a very reciprocal thing. And he was at Sotheby's in the Pacific Palisades. So I went and I got my real estate license and I went and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And he's like, I'm moving back to Texas. Like the writing thing hasn't worked out the way I wanted it to. But I had already sort of gone through the process and was like, okay, I'm going to see it through. So what I just started, I quit my literary management job and I started working at CPK at night.
Nice.
Put on my non-slip shoes.
Yeah.
And did it, which really I did not like doing.
What was the best pizza on that?
Okay,
video?
Definitely. I'll tell you what surprised me about it was the tostada pizza was very popular and it sort of like opened my eyes to that pizza. I hadn't considered it prior. But anyway, so that is how I started in real estate. So I had two jobs. In the morning, I'd go to the real estate office, and then at night, I would go to the restaurant. And I did that for the first year of my career. And then after a year, I was finally able to quit my waitressing job. I was a terrible waitress, actually. So, and then, and just focus on real estate full time. And that's what I've been doing since. So I've been at it almost 10 years.
Wow.
Started off and just sort of as the My Girl Friday for every agent in the office. Like I was young, I was hungry, I was broke. I think that helps. I really think being motivated, and not being too good to do anything super helps. And so I would do every open house I could do. I would do broker's open house on Tuesdays. I would do Saturday showings, which no one wanted to do. I would do Sunday. I was there every weekend, 3 days a week. I did not care.
Yeah.
I just wanted to learn.
Yeah.
Then I started working as an assistant, which was great. And then I got a really amazing opportunity to be, and this is unusual, actually a salaried listing agent.
Oh, wow.
At a brokerage that was really a team. It was a team led by one principal, but it acted as a brokerage. And at that job, I grew exponentially. I worked there 3.5 years. I was the youngest listing agent on the team by, I think, like 22 years. I was, handling 12 listings at a time. I had a full-time assistant. I was just like going for it. So we were really, it was just, you cut your teeth, you really learn how to do this.
Yeah.
And then about 4 years ago, I left and went to Compass. Compass had an amazing opportunity for me that I could not say no to. And so in that time, I've really actually elevated the price point that I specialize in, which has been fun for me and different, right? So now, like I have 2 listings right now. One is at 17.7 million and the other is at 5.5 million. Whereas at my prior brokerage, most of the deals I were handling were like 2 million or below.
Right.
So that's sort of my real estate journey.
Gotcha.
I've expanded my team. I service multiple areas now. I have partner agents in Orange County, Santa Barbara, and the Mojave Desert, which is where I own my investment properties.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I'm doing. So just a busy lady.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
It's so, and it sounds, and this is one of the things I've always followed, like on social media with you. And, we also have known each other too for a while.
Yes.
I was at your wedding.
Yes.
And,
7 years ago.
7 years ago. Just wild.
I know.
But, I one thing that I want to point out just to our audience too, is like you do specialize in sort of these luxury listings.
Yeah. Now, what I would say is I think to say you specialize in luxury listings can be misleading, because I think what I specialize in is giving people a luxury experience. One of my last closings was like a condo on my side of town for $550,000, which in my market is super entry level. That closing did not mean any less to me than when I close a property for $5 million. It is so important to take care of your clients and to value every single person. And just like when you're starting your journey, like being a part of someone's start is pretty epic, right? So to help them into that home was great. But yes, most of the properties that I represent now are north of the $2 million mark. Yeah.
So, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what areas right now would you say are you the most frequently?
So most frequently in Los Angeles. So across Los Angeles is my primary market. What was different and what happened during COVID is my clients spread out. They went to Santa Barbara. They went to Orange County. They took me with them. They didn't want to leave me behind, which is great. It's a testament to how important relationships are in this business. And so I now have team members in both markets that help me, so I can serve both of those markets now. And
awesome.
I've done multiple transactions in both of those markets since
awesome.
COVID. Yeah.
So audience can obviously understand and you're very humble, but but we are definitely in the presence of somebody who, in my opinion, is an expert, in this field. Yes. And certainly when it comes to listing properties. And I think, a lot of folks right now, especially some of the clients that I've been working with who are either considering selling or they are selling, are kind of asking these questions of, okay, well, is right now, is this the worst possible time to sell?
No, it's absolutely not the worst possible time to sell, because for many reasons. So the first thing I'll say is sell when it makes sense for you. Like your life, you cannot, it's like, it's a market, it's volatility. The stock market is the same. You can't make every single decision about where the peak and valley is that day. You're a human and you have a life. And if you are selling a home, that's a home. That's where you are every day. If you need to move on, you need to move on. Right. So think about the market you're in and think about maximizing it. Now, should you sell today and lose money? No. Like if you're going to lose money on a sale, don't sell.
Right. Unless
you really need to. Right. Yeah. But you're probably not going to, because we're coming off of 2 of the hottest years in the real estate industry literally ever.
Yeah.
And you saw tremendous appreciation. And just because you might not get 27 offers on your house and you might get 2, Sell. Yeah. That's actually, guys, what's normal.
I know. Well, what's funny you say that because
normal.
Literally a lot of the conversations I've had lately with people who have been following real estate markets, whether they're investors or whether they've been clients of mine, have been along the lines of like, this is actually very healthy in a sense for real estate.
Yes.
Like we were so out of control.
It was unreal. I mean, it was absolutely unreal. I didn't sleep for 2 years. I feel like I barely saw my husband. I was like, hey, gotta go. And now it's equalizing. What's interesting in the market right now, though, and why sellers should definitely still sell and be encouraged, is that our inventory levels are still low.
Yes.
And people are, I think feeling locked in, and that's keeping the inventory low. And why are they locked in? So they're locked in because maybe they refied and they have a really low rate. So their monthly payment is cheaper than their rent would be somewhere else. Right. Or there could be a variety of different reasons, but no. If you need to sell, you're still going to make money.
Yeah.
You're 100%. Gonna be fine.
And it's also been a really great opportunity, for buyers too, because there have been so many first-time buyers that, one of the things in the investment world, right, is we talk about this idea of house hacking, know, and
I house hacked for many years. I stayed in a 1-bedroom apartment and I bought properties. Yeah.
And by the way, like, it's funny. I swear every guest we've brought on, like, we talk about house hacking, and every person who's ever been successful in real estate, this has been a part of their life one way or another.
And it's delayed gratification because real estate is not an overnight game. I think like people see HGTV and like they want it all right now.
Right.
And it's a waiting game, and it's like patience, and it's building, right? And so, I mean.
Well, and what's funny too is that it's that instant gratification that I think a lot of this generation, frankly, like, and you and I are a part of it, but we have become so used to getting instant gratification. I mean, that's why, for example, when I was getting started in investing in the first place, I went straight to day trading or straight to option trading. Because what is more appealing to someone who wants to invest? Is it the long game of real estate where you have to wait 30 days of closing, but that's after months of educating yourself and months of looking for a deal and months of running numbers, and then you finally get a property and it's 30 days and you close it? My point is, it takes potentially years or a year or 6 months even to get your first investment going versus, I have Robinhood and it's my app and it's really cool, and look, boom, just like I made a trade really quickly. And that instant gratification culture, I think, sometimes doesn't serve our generation very well, because of course one looks more attractive than the other, but the return and frankly the safety,
the stability,
the
consistency
of the other is just when you finally understand it, it can be literally a huge difference maker for generational
it changes your
wealth.
Life. It will change your life.
But I think one thing I've found with the buyers I've been representing lately is that for the first time in this market, we're also able to take advantage in a sense of, some more motivated sellers, people who've lived in their homes for maybe 40 years and have a ton of equity. And so for the fact that they're getting this pullback isn't necessarily changing. Right.
I would say from my vantage point and what I'm seeing, it's still not a buyer's market, but I'm encouraging my sellers to be a lot more reasonable. I think sellers got to, for 2 years, get everything their way, every single thing their way, every term their way, every timeline their way. And now it's just a little bit more of a dance, and it's a little bit more equitable. So I think it's great. I don't think we're in a buyer's market yet. I don't think, I think that if, who knows where the economy is, like, there's a lot going on. Inflation. Election year, there's a lot going on. But what I will say, people considering a sale, do what's right for you. Don't get stuck in the headlines. Don't overthink it.
Oh, thank you.
You are looking at your personal financial decision. You don't need to consider every single other factor in the economy in order to make that decision.
I'm so glad you said the headline piece, because one of the things I said, I think a couple podcasts ago, I don't remember exactly, but we get so stuck in thinking in extremes, like one or the other. Like it's either completely a seller's market, yes, go, or it's completely a buyer's market, go. And like that's what the headlines just read.
Well, and actually, this is the hard. I always say this because before COVID, it was around 2018, we started to feel this. So 2017 was a really hot year. 2018, things started to again equalize, and the sellers couldn't deal with it. So what I always tell my colleagues when they come to me stressed is, hey, the transition's the hardest part. Once it swings one way or the other, everyone knows the steps to the dance they have to dance, and everyone's going to behave accordingly. But what makes it so important right now to have strong agents is we are not in a seller or buyer's market. We are in a transition. And so you really need to tailor everything about your listing specifically. This isn't a one size fits all. So you need to consider your neighborhood, your buyer demographic, and you really need to cater to that in order to get your house sold. And you have to price right. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about right now the best possible strategies that exist for listing your home. Certainly you've got the West Side covered on your end of things. For me, and people who know me know it's more I'm on the Ventura County side of the San Fernando Valley.
Right.
San Fernando Valley, of course, Woodland Hills up to about Sherman Oaks is usually my demographics. So Simi, Thousand Oaks, those types of areas. What are you suggesting for your clients that come to you saying, Stormie, I'm thinking of selling. What steps do I need to take to sell my home today and to have the best possible return?
Well, what I always tell people is buyers buy with their eyes. So if you're going to be spending money improving your property, right, which is something you should be doing prior to a sale, right? You're like, so as a listing agent, like I am the quarterback between marketing and selling your property. So I need to know everything about it. And I also need to make it look desirable, right? So the first thing that you definitely want to do is to invest the money in things people are going to see. Constantly, I have people ask, oh, I've got this like random project. It's something behind the walls. What I tell them is disclose it. If you want, we can even offer a credit up front, but don't spend your money on it right now. Spend your money getting your property looking amazing.
Visually appealing.
Right. And then disclose it. And I think so the first thing I would say is definitely get it looking great, right? And then that extends when speaking to agents, like do not be cheap on your marketing. The last 2 years, and I feel bad for agents who their only experience was the last 2 years because they probably thought this was the easiest job in the world.
Right.
And now here we are, and now you have to like roll your sleeves up and get into the weeds with it. So for agents, you absolutely can't be cheap with your marketing. You have to, like, you're being hired to do something. It needs to look perfect.
Yeah. The days of throwing a yard sign in the front of the house and crossing your fingers.
No. And I never liked that because I looked at every single open house as an opportunity to build my brand. So when you walk into my open houses, like you're getting Fiji water. We don't do, like Lake Arrowhead. Okay.
Yeah.
Like you're a Fiji.
The worst.
You're a Fiji girl, right? You're getting that. You're getting the Lux brochure. You're getting an agent who knows exactly what is going on with the property, and if not, who's not going to lie. Oh my gosh, we can get into that. That's a whole other thing. But so for sellers, you really need to invest where people are going to see. For agents, you also have to invest where people are going to see, and that's your imagery, right? So you've got that. It's got to look perfect,
right?
And then I think what is changing is before I used to price right at the market, so I'd look at the comps. And I'd say, okay, we're going to go right where this last sale was, and then that will attract people. And now I'm saying, okay, well, what are people mentally thinking, right? What are the consumers thinking? They're thinking their interest rates are up, so their monthly cost is up.
Yep.
They're thinking inflation is at 8% this month? So they don't want to pay that much, right? And they're also, some of them are traumatized because they were in bidding wars last year and didn't get anything.
Right.
And so they're completely traumatized, and they see your list price and they think it's going to be 20% more than that. And so they literally don't write. So where I used to say, hey, price at the market, now I'm saying, hey, look at the comps, look at the last sale, price 10 to 20% below the market.
One thing I'll add to that too is, and I've found a lot of people, looking to their neighbors that just recently sold or someone they know who sold earlier this year. And, the thing with comps right now, especially in this transition we're in, is you just don't want to get caught up in looking at comps from 6 months ago. I have found that the best and safest strategy is to be realistic, looking at comps within even the last month if they exist.
Right.
To just kind of get a sort of a bit of a reality of understanding like, hey, look, it's not that we can't necessarily get what your neighbor was
but your
asking
neighbor
for.
had 20 other offers.
Correct.
So emotionally, here's the thing that I think sellers don't understand, but I see it all the time. The hardest part is getting the offer. Once you have the offer, somebody is emotionally invested. Get the offer and leverage the offer. Get the offer, get another offer, right? Like let's make it work. So price low enough to attract those people. And then also know that once you attract them, you're probably not going to see 20 offers. You're going to see 2 to 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really good. And by the way, that used to be when I used to get 4 offers, I was stoked. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I'm going to get a great price for my client. And then the last 2 years we're just a banana circus, but it's more normal now.
Yeah. No, it's healthy. This needs to happen. And frankly, like my heart goes out for, a lot of people who frankly, like they don't take the time to kind of research and understand or listen to podcasts or really kind of read up on the real estate world because they get caught up in these headlines. This idea right now of just selling is the worst possible thing you could do.
Well, and I think doing nothing is the worst possible thing you could do. So I will tell you a real life example. I have family friends who so many times could have bought properties. And we're not talking about like luxury multi-million-dollar. We're talking about just like a property, right? And if they had bought every single one of those times, they would be sitting on a portfolio that's worth like north of, 10 million. But instead they never did. They were always too scared. What if? And now they still have a portfolio, but it's like worth, I don't know, 1.5.
Yeah.
Right. And they literally could have afforded to build small piece by piece a much more valuable portfolio. So that was a lesson for me. And also a lesson for me was I got started in real estate really young, I think. I would say so. I was one of the youngest agents.
You said 22?
Yeah, I was one of the youngest agents always until recently. I'm like, oh, now I'm dyeing my hair, but whatever. So I looked at the wealthy agents and I asked them what they did. I was like, you have got it together. And I was not shy. I was tactful. I wasn't rude, but I was like, I what do you do? And the best advice I got was buy a property a year. Buy a property a year. Don't care where it is. Just buy one. Yeah. And that's how you win 100%. This game. It's monopoly.
And now we're touching a little bit on investing, right? And one thing that, I wish... the thing is a lot of times the clients that I'm working with too, and I'm sure you as well, like maybe they are invested in real estate, but maybe they are not, maybe they aren't buying properties that are outside of their own, home for themselves. But if the numbers make sense, do it. Just
do it. Push through the fear. I am the worst buyer for myself. Every single time I buy a property, I have a meltdown. Like literally, like, no, really. Oh, and then I'll tell you about being a seller. I was a seller. I was the worst seller ever. And by the way, I hired another agent to represent me because I know the value of an agent. And God, wow, that was really informative. That was an informative experience. But anyway.
Being on the other end of it.
And that gets back to listing advice, right? So here's another thing. As a seller, okay, prep the property, get it right. As an agent, you do your pricing correctly. You don't skimp on any marketing. Like you really put pedal to the metal. Yep. Here's the other part about closing a deal that's different now is that an offer, we have some of our highest cancellation rates ever of escrows. The escrow officers are like going through hell. They are not having an easy time, right? Because they're doing all this work and then it doesn't close. So what I would say to sellers listing is that's a really important piece of selling your property is being ready to close the deal. And there are things that you can do as a seller to make that go really smoothly for yourself. So one of those things is do your disclosure package ahead of time.
100%.
100%. If there's a property where I'm not too worried about something, I pay for an inspection for my client, a home inspection ahead of time. I always tell the client, like, they're going to find it anyway. Let's be in control of our response. So let's do the home inspection. The air conditioning's not working. Okay, guess what? Just fix it. Fix it or get a bid. And we'll say, oh, we got this bid for the air conditioner and we're going to give you the credit. Right. So just be prepared. Don't as a seller and as an agent, this is big agent advice too, because I see agents do this all the time and I'm like, what are you doing? You're killing the deal. No surprises. No, what I call it, the reveal, right? The buyer in this market gets under escrow, gets under contract. They're so excited until the inspector calls and tells them, hey, there's mold. Okay, we can fix it, by the way. But mold is a scary thing. You have a baby. Oh my gosh, you don't want to be breathing in the mold.
We've experienced that personally.
Yeah,
I know.
This is really scary. It's also just a scary time to be buying. Everybody says like the rates are so high and the costs are so expensive. Maybe we just shouldn't do it. We get so stressed, we just back out, right? So be in control of the conversation from the start.
Yeah, it's a snowball effect. You know, all it takes is almost like one little thing to set off the right buyer's mindset, and the next thing you know, you have a canceled deal. And that's it. And it's really sad because one of the things that, you know, I like comparing real life events to, you know, these types of decisions that people make, because I think a lot of times we get tunnel vision where when it's our home that we're selling, when it's my house.
Oh, definitely.
Right. We only think within the frameworks of.
And that's why we'll always have jobs. And that's why when people say to me, oh, are you worried about iBuying and all of this and all that? I say no, because I was a seller and I was a crazy seller. I was so crazy because I had just renovated this home and I loved it so much. Yeah. And not everything was perfect, but it worked and I knew it. And we got, you know, like a few bumps in the road and appraisal came back low, blah, blah, blah. And I really like pushed my agent so much. Yeah. Like so much. But ultimately it worked out. So
and that's it. So like the real life example I could utilize in some sense is like if you knew you were about to give a keynote to a group of, I don't know, peers, colleagues, whatever, thousands of people in the crowd. Some people, by the way, I just scared away everyone who's doesn't want to public speak ever in their lives. Like they're just like, never, I would never do this. Like my wife's listening. She'd be like, this is a horrible example, Garrett. Don't use this example. But if you knew that was something you were going to have to do, right?
Right.
You would spend every single day practicing your speech, making sure that your content was like really good, that you were clear, concise, to the point. You would make sure that you were well dressed the day that fit the, you know, whatever the keynote was for. You would make sure that the environment was going to be right in terms of, you know, the vibe you were going to give off. You would practice in front of anybody who would hear you practice, most likely. You would do all that work so that the day of, when it happens, it was as flawless as you possibly. You're prepared. Right. So in the exact same way, when it comes to listing your home, you need to kind of consider it almost similarly. Like you want to have all of these things checked off, because what people don't realize, especially with some of the things you mentioned, like your air conditioning not working, maybe it is going to cost you a couple $1,000s to get that fixed. Yeah. But the reality is that, and again, a lot of people won't realize this, but like within that inspection timeline, when it all
comes out in the wash,
and it comes out, but then the neighbors
are happy to run across the street and talk to your open house guests.
Oh, sure, so they
are. Don't think that you're going to keep any secrets.
Nothing's going to be hush hush.
No, but we'll know everything.
But the thing is that now, okay, it came out, your air doesn't work. Yeah. Do you really think that the buyers are going to just sit there and be like, yeah, just go ahead and just fix it? Or maybe they're going to be asking for more to come off the list price. Or essentially what I'm trying to say is that you could be theoretically now losing even more money in that deal.
Oh, exactly right. That's why I always say just be in control of your response. Because if you have your response ahead of time, there's nothing to complain about. I'll give you another example. I listed a house at the start of this year, actually. And they had completely renovated it with the exception of they had these old washer dryers. And they said, do you think we should get these out? And I said, no, I think it's fine because they still work and it's great. Like then I had a colleague that called me and she had an off-market buyer and I was like, come by, you know, because I always like to sort of see if I can sell it off market and just see what that looks like. And if I can't, I want the buyer feedback, right? She came by with her buyer. She's like, they kind of just did like a half-assed job because like, did you see their washer and dryer? And I hate their bathroom mirror. And that was actually perfect and so serendipitous because what I did is I went and got a different mirror and we took the washer dryer out because people can't complain about what's not there.
Correct.
So no washer dryer included, no problem.
Yeah.
And we sold that. I don't remember how many offers we had, but it was more than 20 offers.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, just be prepared. Also, don't take anything too personally as the seller.
Oh yeah, big one.
Just don't take it personally. It's not personal. When people say it's the principal, like when we're negotiating and people are like, I just want this because it's the principal. No, get out of your own way. Like literally get out of your own way. If you want this to work, let the agents figure it out. Trust your agent when they tell you what's customary and what's normal. You shouldn't have hired anyone you don't trust anyway.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, I think, by the way, that sort of organically goes into this question, which is it's an obvious yes question. I call them that because the question is, does it matter who you list with? Which of course it does. But the reason I want to kind of jump into a little bit more of like the reasoning behind it, because we've already sort of spoke on, the marketing piece, how, you're offering Fiji water to your clients.
Everything that I want my clients to feel special at every turn.
Yeah.
But why does it matter who you list with? Yeah, I mean, of course, obviously, I think now more than ever, you need to really trust the capabilities of the agent that you're working with. And I think for agents who maybe aren't as experienced, I would say bring someone in who is, because this is not the time to figure it out after the deal falls apart, right? Like, and then I think there's so many different types of agents because we're just different people, right? So pick somebody honestly that you like.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say.
Pick someone you like, because you spend a lot of time with them.
A lot of time.
You need to have the same communication style, or you need to think that if theirs is different, that it's adding to the success of your sale. Right? But you want to pick, like you're picking an ally, you're picking a quarterback. Yeah.
And I think that those priorities can vary from client to client. Like, for example, I have a client that I swear the most important thing, which is important among all of them, but is the communication piece, but to another level. Like knowing that there's a very likely chance that I'm going to get back to them within an hour versus
the responsiveness.
Right. Responsiveness has been a big one. Negotiating skills is a big one, which I know can be really hard to kind of feel that out within an agent. It's
different with who you're negotiating with. Like my negotiation style completely depends on the other agent in the deal,
right? And
who the buyer is, because, and especially as a woman, I have noticed that I specifically in my interactions with male agents, middle-aged male agents, they don't like it when I get strong. They really,
am I middle-aged yet?
No,
by the way,
yet. I mean, I feel like technically you are, but you're my age, so you're not.
Okay, right.
We've still got it. So, I remember so vividly. It was my 27th birthday, and I was closing a deal. On the way to my birthday event. And so I was not literally closing the deal. Like the deal was done, and we were going to exchange keys that day. And this other agent he called me and he wanted his clients to be able to move in before the time of possession. And I was like, sorry, because my clients still had stuff that they were taking out. They really waited till the last minute. And he was like, you are a wicked woman, swear. The amount of conversations like this, my husband could tell you he's overheard, because I always put them on speaker just so he can hear, specifically of men talking to me like I am like the most disgusting human on the planet lives, because we're following the contract terms. I mean, like babies. Wow. So with men, honest, this is so real. With I tend to baby them, and they like it. They like to be babied.
Yeah.
And it works really well.
And you realize early on, especially if you're a male who's somewhat with it, that women's brains just seem to be able to operate very, very fast, like across, like being able to multitask, especially like and understand certain concepts so quickly. Like my wife, it's crazy. Like she could literally be teaching our son something from school, thinking about like what the dinner is going to be tonight, like in her head, and having a full conversation with me about like, well,
your
whatever.
Wife's amazing, so we know that. And it's not, this isn't a hate on men, because men are amazing too. It's just in terms of, I think, so getting back to what it is negotiating, it's emotional IQ and how do you handle different types of people, right? So it's not, and of course, like if it was a guy like you who's respectful and nice, it would be different. But just knowing who you're dealing with and knowing how to be the whisperer and what's actually going to work and what's not. And I think the biggest mistake people make in negotiating is coming in like a hard ass. It doesn't make anyone feel good.
Yeah, no, well, I find like for myself that I am, at least personally as an agent representing the buyers and or representing the sellers, is I'm always trying to find the motivation. Like, what is the motivation specifically for this buyer? Or what is the motivation for the seller when I'm representing the buyer? Because if I can figure out what the motivation is, that's where I'm going to tailor my negotiating towards.
Yes. And as a listing agent, I would say I'm always focused on making the buyer really comfortable with the product they're buying. So if you want to come in and see it again, come and see it again. If you want to see it at night, I'll be there at night. If you need to see it for the sunrise, I will give you the lockbox because I don't wake up that early. No, I'm kidding. I don't do lockboxes actually. But like, I just think that when you are the listing agent, it is so important that you are prepared and knowledgeable on the property and that you are really, really honest. Because the second that the buyer catches you even in an inadvertent lie, all of the trust
gone.
Then they're worrying about every single little thing, like, did you disclose properly, did you do this? So no, just if you don't know the answer to a question and you're an agent, it's perfectly acceptable to say, let me get back to you with that. That's a great question. No one's asked it before.
A lot of the agents who are on my team right now, like we're kind of walking through, I have a lot of new agents that are just like onboarding and kind of going through the process. And one of the biggest fears with agents when they're representing buyers the first time or sellers the first time is just, what do I do if I don't know? And you said it, like it really is okay to get back to people with the right information. People aren't as impatient as your fear, especially as a newer agent, is probably telling you that they are.
Right. You can do a lot more damage by answering just like word vomit than just saying, taking a beat and let me get back to you.
Yeah, totally that's fine. Well said. What was one of the, especially I imagine like on the getting started side of things, like maybe one of the bigger sort of mistakes you've learned from?
I remember the biggest mistake I made in my career. Let's hear it. It's impossible to forget. So I was representing a literal billionaire. Wow. She owns a very famous sports team, and I had a new assistant. And I didn't review the paperwork before he sent it out, and it was wrong, and it was really wrong. Like a lot was wrong with it, so much so that the client like could notice, because often you might miss that, right?
Right, deep in the
so
contract.
That relationship never recovered. Like, it was a very bad moment. The assistant was fired. But I also learned a really big lesson, which is like, nothing, when your license number is on something, you look at it. You look at every single thing and you understand it, and you know your contracts, and you know how to walk your client through their contract. Right. And like the auto defaults of the contract, even when there's not a box to check, so that when someone is asking you, the contract's your best friend as an agent, and you can really out agent other agents just by knowing the contract.
That's right.
Right. So it's, definitely hire someone who knows the contract.
100%. 100%.
And by the way, you don't need to know the contract to get your real estate license.
No.
So I don't think that consumers realize that. When you hire a freshly minted agent, he or she may not have ever worked with that contract before.
Correct. And I think one of the greatest things and assets you have as a person who's not a real estate agent is to actually get an idea of what contracts do look like. Because what I have also found, and some clients I've even earned over time, has just been from people who knew the contract better than their agent did. And a lot of this has been with investors specifically that I've worked with.
That's not good.
No.
No. So definitely know your contract. I mean, I think when you're a seller and read the listing contract, if you have questions, ask. And before you sign it, make sure your agent can answer all your questions.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
So investing wise, I said the word, I'm in more the investor who then turned real estate agent. You and I were talking before how about like we're both like trying to do a little bit more of the opposite side of who we started out as.
Yes.
But you do have some investing experience. I'd love to have you share a little bit of that with us.
So I just knew I wanted to buy something as soon as I could buy it, which really gets back to also like whatever you can do it. Right. So, I bought my first property for $189,000.
Nice.
With 5% down. I put in $60,000 to renovate it. Mm-hmm. And today it's worth like north of $600,000.
Nice.
We short-term rental that. We did it. We've been doing it now for like, I don't know, for 5 or 6 years. It was a house hack situation for us for many years. Mm-hmm. And then we decided, we bought another house and then we flipped that house. Mm-hmm. So that was fun and you learn a lot. And I sold that house. That was the house where I also feel like I learned a lot about being a seller. I don't think agents, if you've never sold something, I think what agents should really know if you've never sold anything is that your seller's really nervous.
Yeah.
Like this is a really big deal.
Big deal. Yeah.
This is their money. This is like if they can put, $50,000 towards their kids' college. Mm-hmm. This is if they can max out their, SEP IRA contribution. Mm-hmm. There's a motivation for this that's really, really real.
Yeah.
Right. So I think you have to carry the gravitas of that. And so you have to really earn it. Yeah. You have to be in constant communication, do all of that. But anyway, so we did that. And now we're on to our third property, which is in LA.
Terrific.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And are you, do you have any interest of ever investing out of state as well? Or are you more just, you like being
I totally
local?
Plan on investing out of state. I think for sure I'm optimizing for climate change because I believe in it. So I'm like trying to move somewhere where I think there will be water. Yeah. And I am also always thinking about just retirement and where I'd like to go and what I'd like to. So I'm going to invest my way to retirement.
It's the best thing in the world. Generational wealth right now. Yeah. Stormie, thank you so much for coming on. I do this little thing. It's like a rapid fire question at the end of these podcast segments. Super random question. Okay. But you have to do you have to answer the first thing that comes to mind, right? So it's very little to like think about. Just like first thing that comes. Some funny answers have come from it so far. Okay. The question is a pretty easy one though. What is the dream vacation spot?
I don't know that that's easy for me because it's like a tie between being on a beach or like being in Bath, England with like a cup of tea.
That one's pretty unique.
Doesn't that seem so like cozy though?
Yeah.
I think it does.
I just like it. I don't know why I just picture myself like wearing a wig, like having tea.
I don't know why either. The Roman baths. We're gonna have a toga.
It's getting weirder by the minute now with this imagery for myself. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching the podcast today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to leave all the social media connections for Stormie in the description below. But do you want to plug anything? Any of your socials? Anything like that, Stormie? Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram mostly at Stormie Leoni, and just happy to share any knowledge I can. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys.
You're the best. Thank you so much for coming on, Stormie.
You're the best.
Thank you. All right, guys, take care.